Howdy neighbor, if you're 65 or older, this new tax bill could be the biggest change to your retirement in years. Bigger deductions, lower taxes, and a few surprises you probably haven't heard about. We're going to break it down in plain English, all in less than 10 minutes on the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show.
It's the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show.
Hey there, Michael Andrews here with the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show. Today's episode is a full-blown Michaelatorial, which just means no listener questions today. I'm taking the mic and walking you through something important that you ought to know about. Today we are going to dig into the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. What's changing, what's not, and how it could impact your retirement, your taxes, and even your Social Security planning. We will talk about tax brackets, new standard deductions, and a $6,000 bonus for retirees. Before we jump into what's new under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, let's clear up a couple of big misunderstandings because already there is a lot of confusion out there. First off, Social Security is still taxable. Despite what some headlines have said, and even what the Social Security Administration itself might have implied, this bill does not change the federal tax treatment of Social Security income. It is still taxable just like before. Now, to be fair, the bill did expand deductions and exemptions, especially for folks that are 65 or older. So you may end up paying less in taxes overall, which could mean less tax on your Social Security income in practice. But that's not the same thing as saying Social Security is tax-free, because it's not, and anyone that's going to be telling you otherwise is just plain wrong. Second, there is no extension to those extra Affordable Care Act premium tax credits. Those enhanced subsidies that made marketplace insurance more affordable starting in 2021, well, they're set to expire at the end of 2025, and the OBBBA did not extend those. So unless something changes before now and then, starting in 2026, we're back to the old rules. So, meaning if your income is about 4 times the federal poverty level, you may lose all of your ACA subsidies, and for those still eligible, the credits won't be as generous. However, there is a small ACA tweak that is worth noting. Starting in 2026, all bronze and catastrophic marketplace plans will qualify as HSA eligible. That means people with these plans can finally contribute to a health savings account. That is a win. It's a pretty narrow one, but if you're not familiar with an HSA, here's how it works. An HSA is a special savings account that you can use to pay for medical expenses tax-free. You can deduct the money going in, it grows tax-free, and you don't pay taxes when you use it for qualified medical cost. It's one of the only triple tax-free accounts out there, and if you don't use it right away, the money rolls over year to year and can even be used in retirement. All right, let's talk about what is changing under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. First up, the tax brackets. The lower tax brackets we've been living under since 2018 were actually set to expire at the end of this year. That means your tax bill could have gone up just by doing nothing. But the new bill makes those lower tax brackets permanent. So those familiar rates that you may have heard of the last few years, like 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37%, they aren't going anywhere, at least for now. Now, when I say permanent, I say that with a grain of salt. Congress can change this stuff anytime they want. The tax code, they say, is written in pencil, not in stone. But as it stands, we are keeping the lower rates. Also, there is a quirky little detail in the bill that's supposed to adjust the brackets for inflation. So it may give a little extra breathing room for people in the 10, 12, and 22% federal tax brackets. But it's not super clear just yet how that part works, so we'll have to keep an eye on it and break it down as soon as we know more. Now let's talk about standard deductions, because this is a big one, especially for folks in retirement. Back in 2018, the standard deduction basically doubled thanks to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. But that was always set to expire in 2026 until now. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, those larger standard deductions are now permanent, and starting in 2025, they're getting a little extra bump. So if you are filing single, the standard deduction goes up to $15,750. For married couples filing jointly, it will be $31,500. And like always, those numbers will inch up over time with inflation. So if you're 65 or older, you still get an extra deduction on top of that. No changes in there. In 2025, that means an extra $2,000 for single filers and an extra $1,600 per person for married couples where both are 65 or older. And just a heads up, this is all separate from that brand new $6,000 bonus exemption, but we'll get into that in a minute. So yes, you may be able to stack these benefits if the numbers work in your favor. All right, so this is the part where things get pretty interesting. Starting this year, there is a brand new $6,000 personal exemption for folks who are 65 or older. This is totally separate from the standard deduction that we just talked about. So yes, you may be able to stack this on top. Here is how it works. If you are 65 or older, by the end of the tax year, you can get a $6,000 exemption. If you are married and filing jointly, and both of you are 65 or older, you could each get that $6,000 for a grand total of $12,000. So that sounds like a pretty great plan, right? Well, there is a slight catch. This bonus exemption starts phasing out once your income hits certain levels. For single filers, it begins phasing out at $75,000 and is gone completely at $150,000. For married couples filing jointly, it starts at $150,000 and disappears at $250,000. This phase out is gradual, so it's going to be 6 cents off the exemption for every dollar over the limit, so it doesn't vanish all at once, but if your income's too high, you may not get any of it. So to give you an example, let's say that you're married, filing jointly, and your income is $200,000. That's $50,000 over the $150,000 phase out starting point. Now 6% of that $50,000 is $3,000. So instead of getting the full $12,000 exemption, you would get $9,000 total. Not too bad, but if your income climbs too high, you could lose the whole thing. Also, it's only available for 4 years, from 2025 through 2028. There's no inflation bump on this one either, so it is definitely a limited time deal. But the bottom line, if your income is under those thresholds and you're 65 or older, this exemption could give you a nice little bonus deduction alongside your standard deduction, and that is going to be real money that will be back into your pocket. And believe it or not, we've barely scratched the surface. This bill also made permanent changes to estate taxes, charitable giving, and even tips and car loan interest. But we will have to dive into those into future episodes. But before we wrap this up, there is one wild new thing that I do want to mention just because it's too weird to leave out. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act created something called a Trump account. So this is basically a new kind of savings account for kids that are under 18. Parents and grandparents can put in up to $5,000 a year, no tax deduction, but it grows kind of like an IRA. And if your grandkid or child was born between 2005 and 2028, the government is actually putting $1,000 a year on their behalf. It's limited to ultra low cost index funds and the money's locked up until the child turns 18, but after that it pretty much works exactly like a traditional IRA. There are still a lot of unanswered questions around how these things will work, but I definitely thought it was worth mentioning it, especially if you've got young kids or grandkids. So yeah, there is a lot of information packed into this new bill. Some of it is good, some of it is confusing, and some of it might hit your wallet in ways that you weren't expecting. But that is exactly why I do what I do, helping folks make sense of all this stuff and figure out what it means for your retirement plan. If any of this raised questions for you, or if you just want to see how these changes might affect your Social Security, taxes, or investment, reach out to me, shoot me a message, drop a comment, or visit andrewsinsurance918.com and click on Howdy Neighbor. I would love to hear from you. And if you found this helpful, hit the like button, share it with a friend, or save it for later. You may never know who else might be trying to make sense of this stuff too. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week on the Howdy Neighbor Retirement Show. Thanks.
It's the Howdy Neighbor Show, helping you plan so your money will grow. No need to worry, we'll make it clear. Medicare and retirement right here.